Morning. I don't know whether to put these on or take them off first. I see better out there without them, but if I read, I have to put them on. Anyway, welcome. Good morning. We're glad you're here. I want to ask you to turn with me to the book of 1 Peter, the 3rd chapter. And I'm going to begin by reading the first several verses. I want to talk with you for a little while about marriage because I think there'll be something in the lesson for all ages. I mean, if you're newlyweds or if you've been married 10 or 20 or 30 years or 50 or 60, I think sooner or later there'll be something in here that may impact you. And these are some thoughts I had during the week that I just wanted to share with you. And I'll begin by reading these first 7 verses. This is a serious charge. In the same way, you wives, be submissive to your own husbands, so that even if any of them are disobedient to the word, they may be won without a word by the behavior of their wives, as they observe your chaste and respectful behavior. Your adornment must not be merely external, braiding the hair and wearing gold jewelry or putting on dresses, but let it be the hidden person of the heart, with the imperishable quality of a gentle and a quiet spirit, which is precious in the sight of God. For in this way, in former times, holy women also, who hoped in God, used to adorn themselves, being submissive to their own husbands, just as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord. You become her children if you do what's right without being frightened by any fear. You husbands, in the same way, live with your wives in an understanding way, as with someone weaker, since she is a woman, and show her honor as a fellow heir of the grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered. There's just so much in these verses that I think is important for us to know and understand and to be reminded of periodically. There are many people, all of us, when you got married, did you know what you're getting into? I thought at the time I did. It ends up I didn't have a clue. I'm just surprised that it's lasted as long as it has. It's kind of still a day-to-day thing on occasions, but it's a joyful thing. And that's just kind of the way I think most of us are. There are no perfect relationships. Now, you may have thought you were getting into one. The only marriage ever made in heaven ended up with the couple being kicked out of the Garden of Eden. It was the woman's fault. It was the man's fault as well, because he didn't care what God had said. The woman was fooled, the man wasn't. He still made a mistake, still did wrong, and I think that kind of sets the tone for most of our marriages. Most likely, if you've been married more than a week or two, you've had a few spats by now. I do think after the first 40 or 50 years, it gets a little bit easier. I wouldn't guarantee that. I think there are still moments when we're going to be sad we got married, more moments when we're glad we did. At least I hope that's the way it goes. But we took a vow, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health. And these are serious words that I said in the presence of God. And I want to remember what they were. Stick together, it's worth it for the most part. I've seen some marriages where one of the people, husband or wife, need to get out of it as soon as they can. This person is not going to change. You're doomed to a life of misery. And as I look at it, I would recommend get away. Run as fast as you can. For most of us, though, it's going to be worthwhile. I'll tell you about a couple that Anita and I knew some years ago. We worked summer camps for a number of years and just had a great time doing that. And there was a husband and wife that were there. I'm sorry, the wife was there, the husband never was. She was a difficult person at best. Anita kind of raised her daughter as she was, for 2 or 3 years, one of Anita's girls at camp. And I got to know most of Anita's girls because I went to see her periodically. We ate together and things like that. And the husband we never met. He was always too busy. Maybe he didn't enjoy camps because these were for kids 9 to 18, something like that. Anyway, we were at camp. And what happens usually is that we put the kids to bed 2 or 3 or 4 times. You know how young people are. You put them to bed, they get up. You put them to bed again, they get up again because they can't get unwound enough to go to sleep. Well, finally they did, and then the counselors would gather in a cafeteria or somewhere like that, and we'd sing or we'd do whatever. And we were doing this one night, and the song that they chose was Never Alone. And it goes something like this: I've seen the lightning flashing, I've heard the thunders roll, I felt sin's breakers dashing, trying to conquer my soul. I heard the voice of the Savior telling me still to fight on. He promised never to leave me alone. And we got about that far. And the woman got up and dashed out of the room in tears because her husband had died about 6 months before summer camp. And she was alone. And I didn't understand that partially at the time. I thought this may be one of those couples that she's glad to be rid of him or he's glad to die and get away from her. But they were together. And no matter how rough your life is, the more time you spend with a partner, the more you tend to enjoy their, or at least to get accustomed to their company. And when they're gone, they're gone. And it's a serious problem for you. And I want you to remember that. For a woman to give herself to a man, to depend on him, takes a lot of courage. You're trusting in somebody to be in charge of your life, and that's what these verses here suggest. For a man to commit to a woman for life is a terrifying kind of thing. To be responsible for providing for a family physically and spiritually, financially, is a daunting task. I really believe that it is to honor him even when he is not worthy. To dwell with her according to knowledge when you just as soon run away demands the impossible. And most of us sometime in our life, in our married life, have been in this situation. I don't like where I am. I don't like who I'm with. I don't like. And somebody said years ago, it takes falling in love with the same person over and over and over again. And I don't know that we fall in love as easily when we're older as we did when we were younger. But it is a commitment that we make. And I think we can find joy and comfort in it if we want to. Well, there are all kinds of pitfalls, and this is what I want to talk with you about this morning. The pitfalls of comparison. My mom makes this better than you do. Have you ever said that to your wife? Don't. Please. My mother made the best banana pudding in the world. It starts from scratch. The bananas have to be just ripe enough. She cooked the pudding, put it in there, put the meringue on top, baked it. She went to a lot of trouble. Anita is allergic to bananas. So I can say to her, Mom made this better than you do, because she's never made it. I don't expect it of her. I don't want her to, because the smell of them kind of makes her sick. If the grandkids are down visiting and we give one of them a banana, the peel has to go in the outside garbage. It can't go under the sink. The smell nauseates her. Well, she can say to me, well, my dad was a better provider than you are. Well, of course he was. He had a career going on for 30 years before I came on the scene. He should be a better provider. It's only natural, but here's what you get into with this comparison. I remember when Mom made this, because if I'd said to Anita, Mom makes this better than you, she would have said to me something like, you need to go stay with your mom. Just get out of here. Other folks take better vacations. Other folks drive better cars. Other folks live in nicer houses. That's not the point. The point is contentment. Can you enjoy what you have? To live on a limited income till you can do better. To enjoy a vacation other than throwing all of your money into a house or into a car. We make choices in life, and we ought to be honest enough to admit that these are choices. This passage in the book of Ecclesiastes, the 7th chapter, doesn't really talk about marriage. But it says in chapter 7, verse 10, Do not say, why is the former days better than these? For it is not from wisdom that you ask about this. We tend to look back and say the good old days. Well, what he's doing here is looking at us and saying, you need to understand what you've got today and be thankful for it. And I'd suggest the same thing about our marriages, that we did probably better than we deserved. Both partners in the marriage should be able to say that. And stop with the comparisons. Charles Dickens wrote what I think of as one of the most beautiful paragraphs in the English language. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. And that's from The Tale of Two Cities. And after you get past this paragraph, it's all downhill. I have no use for Dickens, for anything that he ever wrote. He came up with some good things, Great Expectations, has some good words in it. I love this paragraph. But this is kind of where we are. It's both of these all wrapped up into one. The best of times and the worst of times. And it was. And probably will remain as long as we are together as a couple. Hopefully the best is yet to come. I say that to you at somewhat of an advanced age, and I'll talk with you more about that shortly. The quirks, the pitfall of quirks. You have any of these? I read something on the internet this morning. It was the level of insanity that runs in you depending on your birth month. I looked at July, and it was 90%. I'm not 90% insane. Sometimes 100, but not 90. You have any quirks? He's this athletic hunk. He is something to look at. And after a while, he just stinks. The tennis shoes are smelly, the gym shorts are smelly, the t-shirt's smelly. After a while, these quirks began to fade. I just love to watch her sleep. She lies there so gentle. Nita was in the hospital having our first baby. And the nurse is walking through, said, she's just an angel, isn't she? I said, you wait till she wakes up. You'll see the angel. Have you ever smelled anybody's morning breath? They need to gargle before they go to bed at night. It's just the way things are. I'm persuaded they'll find something to do. I hate crunching ice. I'd be sitting at the dining room table reading the newspaper, and one of my sons would come up if I had the sports page, and he always had a cup of ice, and he would crunch it in my ear. And I told him 1,000 times, get away from me chewing that ice. And he wouldn't. I don't know if he did it on purpose or not, but that was him and his irritating quirk. What's cute is now irksome. Whoever this person is that I'm married to should be the most precious person in the world to me. I'd do anything for him. What would you give up for him? And this is, to me, is what it means in 1 Peter 3. Dwell with them according to knowledge. I think that's an all-encompassing concept. Knowledge of what? Knowledge of how they really are. It destroys our marriage when all I can see is this little quirk, this little problem that she has. We all have something like that going on in our life. We've been married long enough that I know every story she's going to tell. I've heard them all so many times. I want her to get to the punchline and she won't get there. So every now and then I'll suggest the punchline to her to spur her on. She knows all of mine as well. She knows sometimes I can't wait to get to the punchline and I just ruin the story because I can't wait. These little quirks that we have are there and they're real. And the impact is kind of seriously. Well, there's also the pitfall of children. And I love the verses in the Bible. In Genesis 33, verse 5, Jacob has been gone from Esau for a good little while. He has come back and he's divided his company, his wives and children, into groups. Esau's coming out to meet him with an army of men. How are they going to greet? Serious? Is it going to be a battle? Esau is coming out to welcome his brother home. He's just got the army, I don't know, for show, to say, this is how well I've done through the years. And they meet and they welcome each other. And then here comes the second group of people and the third group of people. And Esau looks at Jacob and says, who are these? And Jacob responds, the children that the Lord has graciously granted to us. Children are precious in our sight. They really are. God has graciously granted. Blessed is the family of a man whose quiver is full of them. Now, I don't know that I'd go that far. You need to stop at some point in time. I'm not going to tell you when, because I may not have stopped then. They are precious. And we love them dearly. But they put a strain on a relationship. So many times, how many sleepless nights have we spent? We had our grandkids with us a week or two ago. I don't know if they planned it this way or not, but the baby was cutting teeth and she was restless and irritable. All you could do that comforted her was stick something in her mouth, and we fed her 5 meals a day. Stick a spoon in her mouth and she's okay. They're going to do that. And you may as well get used to it. There is no rest if you're trying to raise a child. They'll get sick on through the years, ear infections. Our 2 youngest boys would alternate weeks. This one had the infection. You take him to the doctor, get medicine, but he can't sleep. He's irritable. He's restless. He would get well. The next one got sick. They did this all winter long. The oldest child would get strep, and his fever would go from normal to 104 in a heartbeat. What do? 2 o'clock in the morning, put them in the tub, run cold water in it, bathe them in alcohol to bring the fever down to a normal level. They responded well to medicine, but the medicine, why do they always get sick at night? There's nobody available. Morning, we'd call the doctor. Didn't have money for him. I'd just say, can you just call us in a prescription? He'd say, no, I have to see him first. So we'd take him in, get the same prescription we got 2 or 3 weeks ago. Why is it always that way? Get ready for it. If you have kids, that's the way it's going to be. You're going to have to discipline them. This is never fun. You're going to have to figure out what works with this one, because what worked with the first one wouldn't work with the second one. And it is a constant struggle. Are you spanking him too much? Are you not spanking him enough? And Nita and I would disagree about that because I wanted to beat him to death. No, you can't do that. You can't hurt him. You don't bruise him. But the temptation is there. Money, oh my. If you got as much of a tax break as you deserve for having kids, it would be something. We'd never pay taxes again the rest of our, as long as we're raising them. Hundreds of thousands of dollars to get them educated. Are they going to be worth it? I don't know. Because they get to be young adults. And I fussed at my boys about this. Just when you're able to work, to be helpful around the house, and carry on an intelligent conversation, you leave home. How much money did you spend on tickets for your kids because they kept doing stupid stuff in a car? Dad, I didn't know I was going that fast around that curve. It just slid and I crashed. Got to get the car fixed. It stayed fixed for about 2 weeks. And he did something equally stupid. I'm sorry I used that word, but it was. It just was. And then they leave home. And you got the pitfall of the empty nest. Some of you can't wait for these days to come when the nest is empty and you can get on with life. Hopefully it's going to be an empty house and a full heart, though I wouldn't guarantee this. How are they doing as they leave home? Well, do we still have dreams? Do we still want to do things? Do we like each other? You'll see this on the movies every now and then. A couple whose children have left home and they have nothing to do with each other. They've lived separate lives. Do we still have something in common? Hopefully you do, but here's what you have to work for. You have to work not just to have the money to do nice things, but the energy to actually get out and do them. How much money does it cost? Well, I don't know. Nate and I have taken a couple of cruises. All you have to do is sign up for one, and you're going to get information from every cruise under heaven. From then on, we got a brochure in the mail this past week, and I was looking through it, and she said, "Where would you like to go?" And I looked at the price, $6,000 per person, not per couple. What I'd like to do is to stay home. Well, do we have enough money to make it through life? I don't know. There are all these questions. We have not yet stopped doing fun things. Now, I don't mean by that going to see the kids, which Lord willing we'll do in a week or two, because granddaughter number whatever is going to be 5 and we've got to go for the celebration. We'll have a good time while we're there. But that's not time off from everything. We need to plan trips. If it's just a camping trip out in the woods somewhere that doesn't cost anything. If you can't walk for 5 miles back through the woods, you've got to make plans to do something that you can do. Otherwise, all you're going to live is a miserable existence. Is our life over? Hopefully not yet. Not when I'm in the prime of life. Maybe not the prime. But I think knowing these pitfalls helps us get ready for it. If you have kids, they're going to leave home someday. I want to be able to love them. It's easier if you've done the preparation, if you've disciplined them the way you should, if you've developed a family relationship. And this is so important in our life. Well, there's a pitfall of old age as well. A time of honor or a time of despair, and I don't know. I think that's going to depend on who we're with and who we are, and so many things. I want it to be a time of honor where my kids will still call. And I think this is interesting in our family. We grew up on a farm. They've lived in town all their life. Well, one of them bought 4 or 5 acres, and we get calls now, "Dad, how do you make a garden?" You plow the ground and throw some seed in it. We want to raise an elevated. Why? It just makes everything grow taller. We want to do it organically. You can't do it organically. You can. I don't think I could. You need to spray for pests periodically, and you've got to shoot the possums and the raccoons and the foxes, and they'll come through and ruin your garden. You won't ever have a garden if you don't get that mess out of the way first. They don't know that. And so I'll try gently to explain that. They'll catch a fox in a trap and take it 5 miles and release it. And it's going to be back the next day. They don't know anything. And I love getting these phone calls. "Dad, what's my car doing? It's making this funny noise." Need to take it to a mechanic. That's what I do now. I can kind of afford it in ways that I couldn't. A time of honor. Despair, yes. I've seen this quite often. I may have told you about a story years ago. I was in college, so it's been a long time ago. And I worked an afternoon shift, and we'd gotten off work at 11 o'clock at night. And on the way home, we'd stopped at a little restaurant, Royal Castle at the time, like the White Castle or whatever it is, with the cheap little hamburgers, and we'd get something to eat, and at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, you're giddy, you're giggling, boys and girls, I think, kind of alike. And there were 4 of us sitting at a table, just kind of enjoying life and laughing and cutting up. And this older gentleman, he was in his 70s, I guess, walked up and put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Boys, enjoy yourself while you're young, because when you get old, you're going to hate it." And I've never forgotten that, because I've gotten old. and I don't hate it. I think by the way he lived, he has made his advanced years. There are many people here who are older than I am, and you still get honor. Hopefully you will from now on. Excitement of grand or great-grandchildren. Can't get enough of them. Our oldest one got married last summer, spring, whenever it was. Will I see great-grandchildren? I don't have a clue. Depends on how long I live, depends on whether they have one or not. Her sister is in college now, maybe, I don't know. But I know it'll be an exciting time. I know it'll be something that we'll look forward to, but you've got to get ready for trouble as well. Not with family, hopefully, but trouble that old folks run into. What's your health like? What's the money like? Am I going to be able to make it through life on what I've got saved up? I told people some years ago, I can retire just any time as long as I only live 3 months. That's how much money I've got saved up. That's not quite that bad. We did a little better. I don't know. Health, I really don't know. Nobody does. My plan for old age is that Anita's going to take care of me. I don't know if she'll be able to, if I'll come down with something that she is capable of dealing with. I don't know. But this is what we run into with family, with old age, and with things of that nature. I'm persuaded that God's law, His words in this book, can prepare me for whatever comes. If I'll do what He says, if I'll be mindful of the truth of His word, I think the best is yet to come. We read this morning in the book of 2 Timothy in the auditorium class what Paul was saying about his possible demise. God's delivered me from every problem I've ever had, and I believe that He has. There's one coming for Paul, and that's death. God has delivered me from every problem and will deliver me into heaven. And that's what I want to focus on. I want to get me ready to go be with the Lord forever. And I think that's a worthy goal for every one of us. We'll be led in prayer at this time.